Alabama practice is underway. Yesterday, we talked about the offense and some of the exciting players on offense. Now we're going to talk about the defense, which has been coached by Nick Saban for a long time. And now Kane Womack takes over those responsibilities. Clint Lamb joins us. We'll also have our buddy, our pal, our best friend, Big Sexy Elmo, all that right here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, and let's get this party started with a mighty Roll Tide. All right, Clint Lamb, man, back again. We just got you locked in, hanging out with us here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Guys, like and subscribe. Let's talk some Alabama football. Right out of the chute, the defense. What are things looking like? Your thoughts as camp is going on right now with Alabama on the defensive side of the football?
Changes. A lot of things are the same, but a lot of things have changed as well. With Nick Saban being retired, now the defense is in Kane Womack's hands. And, that's going to lead to a little bit of a different philosophy, different position names. How are they progressing? You've got the Wolf position, you've got Husky, you've got Rover, and just, where are certain guys lining up? What's their usage look like? What does the rotation look like? I think that's really important. Does Alabama continue to rely on a little to no rotation at certain spots, or do they start, getting more and more guys involved? I think that's really important to monitor, but there is this transition period that's been taking place ever since Nick Saban retired, and we saw the growth throughout the spring. But how do those guys continue to come together and put a product on the field that fans can be proud of and that can be effective and complement what they're going to be doing offensively? I think the talent's there, and if they can do that, this could end up being a really, really good football team.
Well, this is the concern I have. I'm going to be honest with you. I saw the 8A game, and that wasn't inspiring in the first half. It looked a lot like Florida State in the bowl game against Georgia when all their players were gone. And then they came out, they had a good second half. Clint, I didn't know if it was because of Alabama, like saying, hey, we would need to run some stuff, make the defense look good, or if they just got better, right? That you're losing your best player in Dallas Turner. Obviously Caleb Downs, bolts for cash and goes to Ohio State. That's a huge loss. Alabama's got to figure out a way to replace the entire secondary. Even Nick Saban was concerned about that. Tell me why we're going to get pressure on the quarterback up front to protect the secondary early on until those guys kind of figure it out.
Well, and that's the combination of factors that is probably the most concerning part. Is that you kind of wonder, okay, the secondary from a depth standpoint, from an experience standpoint, they've got some really good pieces at safety, but they're coming kind of from all over for the most part outside of Malachi Moore. You've got inexperienced at corner, only one returning guy in Jaleel Hurley, who played 0 snaps last year. So what does the transfer portal guys look like? What do the true freshmen look like? You've got that combination with the question marks about the pass rush. And I do think, a lot of people have asked, because I've said as the offseason has wore on, I've started thinking about it, and I'm probably more concerned about the pass rush than I was early on in the offseason. And the reason being is while I think everyone is immensely talented, and I do think certain guys are going to emerge, going in, name that player up front that you're terrified of if you're an offensive coordinator. There are none. There are a lot of really good players, and maybe from a run standpoint, you're concerned about certain guys. But last year, not only were you terrified of a Dallas Turner and what he could do to, as far as wrecking your offensive game plan, you also had Chris Braswell, who was a fantastic complementary piece. That doesn't mean that both of those guys wreaked havoc every single week, but there was enough there where, every single week, no matter what you were trying to do, you had to start with the fact of how do we try to take these guys out of their defensive game plan as much as humanly possible and limit their impact on the outcome. And that was just something that, was very hard to do, but B, it opened up a lot of opportunities for others. Mm-hmm. And so I think they'll have an effective pass rush, but I think from a schematic standpoint, it's going to have to be, some of it is going to need to be generated by being creative. and maybe continuing to keep those off-ball linebackers involved in the pass rush. You've got two really good ones in Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. It's, which guys emerge? Is it Quay Russo? Is it, Quandarius Robinson? Is it Keanu Coote? Like I said, a lot of highly talented, highly coveted players coming out of high school. We've seen some flashes from some of those guys, but really, up to this point, there's nobody that you just know beyond a shadow of a doubt is going to be going into Saturdays, and offensive coordinators are going to be terrified of him. And so, that opens up the possibility, and the belief from their side. Alabama's got to identify a couple of those guys and figure out how to complement them. And if they can do that, then like I said, I think they can have a really good defense. They've got talent. There's some depth concerns as far as establishing the depth, but if they can put the pieces together, it could be really good. But there are question marks, and I think that fans, any fans that aren't certain about it, I think that's valid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I'm hoping, and I mean, you may have like a guess of who this could be, but I'm hoping that Alabama finds that Will Anderson Jr. type. Remember his true freshman year? No one was like, he was a big recruit, but then all of a sudden, this time of season, like during practice, everybody's like, this guy is really causing havoc, and we knew like going into that season, like, okay, this guy can play. And he turned out to be, one of the best defenders Alabama's ever had. Now, do you think that there's potentially somebody that could be that person right now at Alabama? I guess that's pretty high praise or, expectations, but maybe somebody along those lines where you're like, what, this guy, if I had to put my money on it, this guy could be the guy that, during practice, like shows us that he's going to be a force and that he's going to make this Alabama defense tough.
Well, take your pick because there are so many options that could be that guy. And it's kind of like that year. You had Drew Sanders coming in, you had Chris Braswell. I would say that the Christopher Allens of the world is kind of how you feel about, the Quandarius Robinsons and maybe the Keanu Coots, where it's like you've seen Robinson play more than Coote, but both of those two guys are more veteran presences. You're going to be able to get something from them. It would be better if they were kind of that complementary piece where the attention was being given probably elsewhere, but it's also possible. I mean, they have the upside to become that force. So I don't want to completely, discredit them and make it seem like that's not possible for those guys. But I think Russo, I think, Yanze Pierre, Keon Keeley, even a guy like Noah Carter, who I know didn't arrive until the summer. Haven't heard a ton about him because there hasn't been many opportunities to hear a lot about him since he arrived on campus, but maybe he starts generating some buzz and can get involved a little bit. Wolf and Bandit are two pretty deep positions.
Right.
So I don't know necessarily that he'll be able to get involved, but I don't think that'll be a reflection of his talent or lack thereof. I think it's just going to be the guys ahead of him. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, we felt pretty decent about Alabama's pass rush a few years ago when Will Anderson and those guys were freshmen because you had some of the established experience, but you had a trio of freshmen coming in. Anyway, Quandarius Robinson, by the way, who was also a top 75 player. And so you thought, okay, maybe they can, in the early stages, they can have, enough or get by with enough. And then maybe some of these freshmen can start to step up. And then Will Anderson Jr. for pretty much day one was just a wrecking ball. I don't necessarily think you're going to get that, especially with the fact that, we've seen some of these guys on campus for a year. They haven't pushed for significant playing time yet, or a lot of them haven't. The talent's still there. And I still think that one of these players is going to emerge as a big time player. I just don't know which one it's going to be. And currently, with the fact that we don't know who that is, you can't just automatically assume that it's going to come along and everything's going to be fine. You still got to see it, but there are some encouraging players to maybe keep an eye on.
Well, I hope that they get a pass rush on the offense because I feel like the secondary is a work in progress. I mean, you just lost so many guys. I feel more comfortable with safety than I do cornerback. I look at the cornerback position and you got these transfers, and this is what I get your opinion on, that don't have as much talent as the freshmen, but the freshmen don't have that much, really any experience. Guys like Mbakwe, I figure eventually is going to be a Kool-Aid McKinstry type lockdown dude, but how do you get there?
Yeah, and that's what I liked about Alabama adding Deshaun Jones. I think he's an underrated addition, but I think he's really important because it takes the pressure off of the younger guys. you've got Damani Jackson, there's high hopes for him. We haven't really seen him be a super impact player on the college level, but he's got the experience factor. And just from a physical makeup, he's everything that you look for at the position. But Deshaun Jones, having him, now you've kind of, it's kind of like in 2021, I guess, where you knew there was a lot of talented freshmen, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Tyrion Arnold, those types of players. But you had the Josh Jobs and you had the Jalen Armour Davises, where it's like, okay, if some of those freshmen aren't ready to make a significant impact, you feel pretty good about your headliners there. You don't think you're getting just all-star day one talent's gonna, cause a ton of problems for opposing offenses, but you have steady enough players where you're confident that it won't be a complete liability for you. And I think that's the most important part, is that if we see Xavier Jones step up and take that job from Deshaun Jones, or Xavier Brown, excuse me, then I think that's going to be because Xavier Brown is that good of a player, and it won't necessarily be through necessity.
Right.
And I think that, just speaks to the health of that position group. It's just, with it being nothing but transfers and freshmen, it's kind of like the pass rush in some ways, where you just don't know which guys are going to emerge. You don't know what their ceiling or impact is going to be in 2024. So you've got to see it. And there's some concerns as far as depth, because we have seen Alabama working to its depth in the secondary pretty much every year. Yeah. I mean, and Nick Saban understood the importance of that depth. And so, it can't just be, okay, Xavier Brown's emerged. He's playing good football opposite Damani Jackson. Alabama's completely fine at corner, because at some point, one of those guys is probably going to miss time. So you need to have a third guy that you're ready to use, and, maybe a fourth guy that you're ready to use, or same thing as safety. So it's just a matter of seeing some of that stuff to come together. But from a talent standpoint, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the same way, but I'm still worried. I mean, Western Kentucky can be a tough team. They throw the football a lot. You know that. Alabama struggled last year against South Florida. Then you got to go to Wisconsin. I don't hear anybody really talking about that being a tough game. But look, I mean, this is a program that's got a really good coach and has had a year now to go from, hey, this is what we want to do, to this is what we're going to do. And that guy at Cincinnati was one of the best, right? Then you got Georgia. I mean, there's so many big games early for this team. They're not going to have a lot of time to try to figure it out. And I feel like, to me, the offense is going to have to pick up the defense early, is what I'm guessing, where you might have to outscore some teams.
Here's what I don't like about the schedule. A lot of people are going to look at the first couple of weeks and they're going to say, okay, the good news, the good side of it is that, you've got some guys who can be brought along a little bit slower, because even though there might be some deficiencies, these first couple of opponents might not be able to have the ability to exploit those deficiencies as much as they would want to or need to in order to win. Then you go to Madison, Wisconsin, you play the Badgers. Things get a lot tougher, but I still think Alabama, from a talent gap standpoint, has a pretty substantial, advantage there. But here's what I don't like about it. Even if it resulted in a loss week one, which I'm sure everybody would rather be 3-0 heading into the Georgia game rather than being 2-1. But if they were playing a really tough opponent, let's take Georgia's schedule, for example. If they're playing Clemson in week one,
right,
that's a good enough football team where you might even lose that game. And they might not be as good of a team as you, but you just don't have the right things figured out. They exploit it and they win. But it will expose where you're weak really early in the year, and you've got plenty of time to compensate for that or make up for that and figure some things out. But it lets you know exactly where you are. I don't think we'll truly know where Alabama is as a team until Wisconsin, and potentially, if Wisconsin's not as good as we think they could be as far as continuing to grow under Luke Fickell, it might not be until Georgia where we really know how good or how not good is this Alabama team. And so that's the concerning part. You would like for that to be figured out sooner rather than later. But at the same time, there's a flip side, and you should be able to figure some things out and at least see enough where some of those young guys who are inexperienced, they can get the experience they need. Maybe that can help you and help you navigate, these early waters. But, it's going to be different under Kalen DeBoer. There's a lot of transition on both sides of the football. And Alabama's got to be ready to kind of step up. And when the big dogs start rolling in, you got to be ready to play them.
Oh, well said, man. All right, it's Clint Lamb. Coming up is Big Sexy Elmo right here on the Bama Tailgate.
Resort.
Show's brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Want to remind all of you guys that right now is a great time to swing over to Dancing Rabbit Golf Course. You don't have to have a membership. And if you go to the sports book at the Golden Moon Casino and you bet $50, you can play the golf course for $40. It's the Augusta that you can play, and you don't have to have a membership as well. It's a really fantastic course, but you got Geyser Falls, which is the water park. You got table games and slots at Golden Moon and Silver Star. You got the sports book, which is Vegas style, and you don't have to go all the way out to Vegas. But check it out for yourself at Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Now, with that said, our show is presented by that. But when we come back, Big Sexy Elmo will join us to tell us what's going on today.
They call him Big Sexy. Coming at you from the Walker County. Jasper is his hometown. He's known for giving free rundowns. Oh, Big Sexy. Throwing out those Alabama thoughts, sneaking out your mom's window without getting caught. Nick gives you the XPs, but Big Elmo is here to please. Big Sexy Elmo on the Bama Tailgate Show.
Where is he? Oh, there he is. I was like, where is he?
I was like, where am I at? Welcome into August 1st.
Oh!
August 1st is here, ladies and gentlemen. And let's take a look at the celebrity
Football's
birthdays.
this month. Football's this month.
Football is this month, my friend. It's here.
But it's this month.
You know, I was told yesterday that this weekend will be the first weekend that we have football for like 6 months when you count like the spring league and get everything. Oh, it's glorious. It is glorious. Let's see. Blues musician Robert Cray is 71 today.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see. Singer Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, 65 today.
First, this is the first concert I ever went to.
Yeah.
And for a long time I was like, man, Def Leppard's the first one I ever went to. Like, and then now I hear them on your station and on other stations. And I'm like, these guys rock, man. I'm glad that was my first concert.
Great show.
Yeah.
Adam Duritz of the Counting Crows is 60 today.
Yeah, the Counting Crows, another like kind of American rock band.
Yeah. Jason Momoa of Aquaman, Game of Thrones. He's 45 today.
He's like big dude.
Yeah.
I think I was at the wax museum and they had a wax museum him. He's a pretty tall guy, big dude.
If you're looking for something to celebrate today is National Girlfriend's Day.
Yay! You got a lot of girlfriends?
So celebrate all of those girlfriends that you have.
Just not all at the same time in the same.
Not at the all. Yeah, and you can celebrate National Girlfriend's Day as well as and do that with your wife, and it'll make for an exciting day, I'm sure. National Raspberry Cream Pie Day is also today.
Oh yeah, not something that I think I've ever had before. I like,
but it sounds good. It does sound good. The calendar today. Adolf Hitler, back in 1936, presides over the Olympic Games as they opened in Berlin.
Yeah, how about that? Didn't end up well for him when he tried to take over the world, but
right.
There was a time.
1958, first-class postage is raised for the first time in 26 years from 3 cents to 4 cents. Now it's being raised seemingly every 3 months.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't blink before they've raised it again.
Yeah. So anyway, it'd be nice to mail something for 4 cents now, but can't do that. Can't do that. I guess the cost of living is going up and everything. Let's see here. What else happened this day? 1973, American Graffiti had its premiere. The movie opens in wide release on August the 11th, but big movie there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1981 MTV debuts.
Yeah, just keep every time I think of MTV, I see the little dude with the flag planted on the moon.
Yeah.
The MTV flag.
Yeah, and that was a really cool network until they really just
they stopped playing music.
They stopped playing music and went to. I mean, it's like every episode, everything you see on there's I don't know what it is anymore.
On this episode of The Real World, the funniest Real World wasn't The Real World. It was Dave Chappelle's Real World that he did.
Yeah, that was funny.
The guy,
but I used to enjoy watching The Real World.
Did you?
Yeah, I enjoyed The Real World. That was probably the last thing I guess I watched on. Beavis and Butthead started on there. That was good. But other than that, 1998, Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls peaked at number 1 on the charts.
Saw the Goo Goo Dolls in concert. Yeah, pretty good. They were pretty good.
1993, Reggie Jackson inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, man, one of my favorite stories is when I was a kid and they took me into the locker room to meet Reggie. Wanted to be Reggie. Got to meet Reggie. He was a nice guy and love to meet him again. Like thinking about like how you could never do that now. The guy basically I went through the corridors of Memorial Stadium. He took me right in there. He walked right in and got Reggie Jackson and brought him out before cell phones and everything else. God, I wish I had a picture of that, but pretty cool because I loved Reggie and he took the time to meet me. And I thought that was amazing.
And finally, in one of the weirdest things that ever happened in the history of the world, 1994, Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley announced they have been married 11 weeks earlier in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, the king of pop married the king of rock, right? Wasn't he the king of rock, Elvis?
The king of rock and roll's daughter, yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't last long.
That didn't last long. There was something a little fishy about that. Anyway, that's the look at this day in history.
Hey, guys, thanks for hanging out with us, and have a great day. Roll Tide, everybody.